Hey y'all, my name's Priscilla and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going through my TBR for the 2018 Book Riot Read Harder challenge. That's a mouthful. But yeah, so there's 24 challenges and I really like them, and I really like that it kind of encourages a very diverse reading. I think that if I manage to complete my 24 prompts this year, I will be very happy because it'll be a lot of books that I maybe wouldn't have picked up. So there are 24 prompts and I'm probably just gonna go ahead and get into it because that's a lot of books to get through. And of course, I will link the Book Riot challenge below if you're interested in participating, along with all the books. I do have all of the challenges and the books that I have planned written down here in my bullet journal. So I will be looking down most of the time probably and reading these. But yeah, so let's just go ahead and get into it. First challenge is a book published posthumously. Humously? Okay, so I plan on reading The Diary of Frida Kahlo, her journal. So there's journal entries, but there's also a lot of art incorporated here too. So this one sounds pretty good. A book of true crime. For this, I want to read Columbine by Dave Cullen. And this is a book that follows a journalist that was on the scene at Columbine, which is really one of the first school shootings in the US that I remember, at least. And school shootings are still happening, so I feel like that's a very relevant book. And this one apparently is pretty good, and it took him like 10 years to write. So I'm excited to get to that one. Next is a classic of genre fiction. So I will be rereading Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And this is a book that I remember reading, oh God, when I was in college, high school, somewhere around there. And I remember really liking it, so I'm hoping to get back to this. And this is a sci-fi, satire, utopian kind of world. I don't really remember a lot of it, but I'm hoping that I will like this too. Next is a comic written and illustrated by the same person, and I plan on reading Nimona. Next is a book set in or about one of the BRICS countries, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, or South Africa. And I have chosen The Three-Body Problem. And this I don't really know too much about. I know it takes place in China. It's written by a Chinese author and translated to English. It's the first in a trilogy, and it has to do with hard science, physics, and interactions with aliens. And I think it takes place surrounding the Chinese Revolution. Next is a book about nature. And for this, I have selected Rain, A Natural and Cultural History. And this, I think, is just all about rain. I think it's about, from a perspective of a college professor, and she talks about the impacts of rain. Yeah, that was in the title. Anyway, next is a Western. And this is one that I struggled with because I don't want to read a traditional Western. But I found Six Gun Snow White. And this is the retelling of Snow White as a cowboy. And that sounds awesome. Next is a comic written or illustrated by a person of color, and I have selected Persepolis, the story of my childhood. And this is a comic that I've heard a lot of great things about. I believe it takes place in Iran and during the Islamic Revolution, and it's a coming-of-age story. Next is a book of colonial or post-colonial literature, and for this I have selected Pachinko, and I've heard really great things about this also. I'm gonna probably say that about all of these, but that is a story that follows a Korean family, and I believe it's a generational tale. I've heard that this has some colonial topics. I believe the Korean family moves to Japan, so hopefully that does fulfill this challenge. If not, please let me know. Next is a romance novel by or about a person of color. For this, I have selected An Unseen Attraction. When I saw that there's a romance novel with a person of color on it that's pretty well rated on Goodreads, I was like, yes please, I will read that. Next is a children's classic published before 1980. For this, I have selected James and the Giant Peach, which was a movie that I watched as a kid and really freaked me out. So I'm gonna read the book and see if it freaks me out still, I guess. Next is a celebrity memoir, The Last Black Unicorn. And this is a memoir by an up-and-coming actress that really has taken over. Last year, I feel like Tiffany Haddish was everywhere. And I saw an interview with her about the book, and she is so hilarious. So I have this on hold in my library. She narrates it, so I'm expecting it to be really funny. Next is an Oprah Book Club selection. So for this one, I have chosen Love in the Time of Cholera. And this is a book that I bought because I saw the movie and it really confused me and I wanted to know more. but this is, you know, the OG magical realism, and that if you're really into magical realism, you should pick this up. So hopefully I'm okay about this. I've heard kind of mixed things, but we'll see. Next is a book of social science, and I have selected Evicted: Poverty and Profit in the American City. And this is a book that I chose because I've heard great things, but also because this is one of the books that President Obama read last year. And this is supposed to be about extreme poverty and economic exploitation. So it's a nonfiction book I'm hoping that I can get to. I have this on hold at my library. So next is a one-sitting book, and I have chosen Gochar Gochar. And I mostly picked this because it's a short book, but it's also a book that takes place in India. And I don't think I've ever read a book that takes place in India, so I'm interested to get to this. Next is read the first book in a new to you YA or middle grade series. And for this one, I've already started it. I'm going to be reading The Shadow Shapers. This is a YA novel about a Afro-Latina in New York whose grandfather is in a comatose state, but she's also an artist, and she discovers that he was part of a secret society called Shadow Shapers. And what they essentially do is use art as a connection to souls and spirits. So it sounds pretty cool. Next is a sci-fi novel with a female protagonist by a female author. And for this, I've also started the first book in the Binti series. I'm almost done with this. It's so good. So I'm probably going to be continuing on in this series. And it's so short. It's 96 pages. But this is about an African girl who is part of a tribe that the first in her tribe to go to a university on another planet. And she goes to this other planet, and in her travels, she has some relations with some aliens, and it's super weird, but super cool. Afrofuturism, really good read so far. Next is a comic that isn't published by Marvel, DC, or Image. For this, I have selected Wires and Nerve #1 by Marissa Meyer. This is a graphic novel that follows Iko from the Lunar Chronicles. She was probably my favorite character in the Lunar Chronicles, so I'm really excited to get to this graphic novel. I've had it on hold in my library for weeks. Hopefully I can get it soon. Next is a book of genre fiction in translation. And for this, I have selected The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle. Now, this is a book that I've been meaning to get to. I've also been meaning to read Japanese translated works, but this is supposedly a very well-liked book in Japan that is translated in English. And I think this is pretty much about a man that goes on a search for his wife's missing cat in Tokyo, and he starts to uncover and encounters other things. I don't know, the blurb is really weird, but it's really well liked and really well rated, and I've heard great things, so I want to get to this. Next is a book with a cover you hate. I really struggled with this one. This one is really weird. I really thought that I was just going to go to a bookstore or the library and just pick up the first thing that I hated. But then I went to the Goodreads Book Riot discussion board, and someone mentioned this book. Yeah. Oh, how do you manage to make racist propaganda about Vietnam War, about Mexicans, all at the same time? So I'm gonna read the blurb because it looks nothing like what this cover looks like. What if we could travel back in time to save our heroes from painful deaths? What if we could rewrite history to protect and reward the innocent victims of injustice? In Alfredo Vea's daring new novel, one man does just that, taking readers on a series of remarkable journeys. With the help of his friend, Simon uses the device to fly through time. Wherever acts of cruelty take place in the past or in the present, the machine lets him lift the suffering away and deliver them to a utopian afterlife. Blending magical realism, science fiction, history, and comic book fantasy, the Mexican flyboy swoops readers from the jungles of Southeast Asia to the vineyards of Northern California. What the hell? What is that cover? Like, what is it? I don't know. I hope that I don't regret this decision, but this is a cover I hate. Next is a mystery by a person of color or LGBTQ plus author. For this, I have selected The Unexpected Inheritance of Inspector Chopra. So this is a mystery that is from an Indian author. It takes place in Mumbai. It's about an inspector that is retired, but that comes across a death, and there's an abandoned baby elephant. So yeah, that sounds super loopy. I'm into it. I'm gonna try and read an Indian mystery. So my camera just died on me and I have to finish up really quick so I can finish. Okay, so next is an essay anthology, and I'm really excited to get to this. It's a nonfiction book that has been edited by Roxane Gay. It's called Not That Bad, and I think this is interviews and takes on rape culture and sexual assault in the US. So that sounds great. That comes out in May. It's a new release. Next is a book with a female protagonist over the age of 60, and I have selected The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And this is about a woman that has been in the public eye her whole life. I think she's a movie star. She gives her final interview, and she's talking about how she has been misrepresented in the public eye and her relations with her 7 husbands. And last is an assigned book you hated or never finished. I didn't necessarily hate this, but I hated the way my English teacher taught this in school. In high school, I read this my senior year, and I don't think I finished it. And that is Bless Me Ultimum. So I'm hoping by rereading it, I can get something new from this. Hopefully I like it. And that is the final book in the Read Harder Challenge TBR that I have set for myself. This is a very tentative TBR. A lot of these books I'm hoping to get from my library. A lot of them have a lot of holds. Some of these are a little tricky. I don't think my library has all of them. If I find something else that I can fit one of these challenges, I may pick them up instead for some of these. If you've read any of these books, I would love to hear from you. What did you think? Did you hate them? Did you love them? Please let me know. If you're contributing and participating in the Read Harder Challenge, I'd love to hear from you too. What do you think of the challenges? What books are you looking forward to reading to fulfill some of these challenges? I'm really excited, and I've already started, so I really hope that I can finish this year. I've tried to do this the past 2 years. Anyway, thank you very much for watching me give very bad synopses and summaries of books that I know very little about. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!